So indeed, good morning and good afternoon, people, wherever you happen to be in the world. I'm Mervyn Graham. I'm a design thinker responsible for Zoosh's business in the UK and Ireland. I'm joined by Sheena Bouchier and Lena Nieminen, also design thinkers, but certainly design doers too, unlike myself for the most part. Sheena and Lena, you might just say a quick hello.
Hi, everyone.
That's Sheena and Lena.
Hello, this is Lena.
Very good. Very good. So now you've met Sheena and Lena very briefly. You'll get to know them a bit better as we move along. So today we're going to cover topics pertaining to design thinking and how design thinking can be applied to the SAP technology space in particular. And we'll show some examples of that. If you happen to have any questions during the session, please do drop a respective note into the chat area on the webinar control panel, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation today. So let's not waste any more time, and let's begin with a question. So what is design thinking? Essentially, on a philosophical level, design thinking is a mindset. It's about knowing what you don't know and being comfortable stepping outside of your own experience and limitations. It's about experiencing the world from many different perspectives fundamentally. Your own perspective and the perspective of other actors or stakeholders in the mix. It's really about immersing yourself into the world or the problem domain that you're exploring and extrapolating from it knowledge or insights that weren't obvious before necessarily. So design thinking itself isn't specific to SAP, but it's certainly very relevant to SAP, as it would be many different types of technology stacks. So moving on to a more practical perspective on design thinking and exploring design activities. So on a practical level, design thinking is a structured approach or methodology for acquiring the perspective of other actors. It's a process that essentially allows you to see what's not being said through ethnographic study. And ethnographic study itself involves interviewing all business and end user stakeholders and really forming a 360 view to a problem domain. So we're going to talk a bit more about that later and under the instruction of Sheena and Lena. So in essence, design thinking methodology as practiced by Zoosh encompasses three distinct phases. So we've got discover, design, and deliver. Again, we'll touch upon those a bit later. And combined from these phases, we can really see what's not being said and really accommodate that into the design that we're putting forward. So let's explore an example of what I mean by seeing what's not being said. So very traditionally, we approach problem descriptions with lists of requirements. So you can see here there are 4 requirements listed on the left-hand side of this particular presentation slide. Requirements alone really aren't sufficient for describing a problem. They can really be ambiguous. So let's attempt to demonstrate this particular point. So based on those 4 requirements there, I'm going to tease you all by asking that could you please drop into the chat window your response in relation to a solution or product that might actually address these particular requirements. And my point here is to demonstrate that people perceive requirements in different ways. I've discovered many different responses to this in the past when talking about the same topic and offering similar examples. In this particular case, I've received responses or suggestions that we might offer a wheelchair or an aeroplane, and indeed, very interestingly, a train. So you can imagine a train having a steering wheel. But the point being that people perceive requirements in very different ways. So through design thinking and ethnographic study, we can uncover other requirements that really offer us more profound insights to the problem we're trying to solve, and we can therefore get a better chance of really addressing the problem that the particular domain has. So let's say, for example, that we discover another requirement which is cuts grass. If we add that requirement here, and if I was again to ask you all to drop your ideas into the chat window, I wouldn't be at all surprised if in fact you all suggested that we might require a lawnmower. So that's the obvious answer to this particular problem. But the clarity in finding that answer was only really derived at the point that we discovered this product should also cut grass. Okay, so let's move along to who benefits from design thinking. So at the end of the day, design thinking benefits you as a SAP-related product owner. It benefits the teams that develop the products as it guides them with fewer question marks in the end. And of course, your end customers will reap the reward of having the right product to problem fit available to them. So Sheena, I might just ask at this point in time that you take over and lead us through design thinking and its role in innovation particularly. Sheena, over to you.
Thanks, Marv. A really good introduction. So I'm going to talk to you now a little bit about the context for design thinking. So, how does design thinking help innovation, and why do we need to innovate? So we're just going to look at some trends to start with, which will remind us of the need to innovate. So, for example, the Yale School of Management found that the average lifespan of an S&P company dropped from 67 years in the 1920s to 15 years today. And they estimate that 75% of the S&P 500 firms will be replaced by new firms by 2027. So what does this mean? It means that market position is by no means guaranteed, and companies who don't keep ahead of changes in technology and who don't implement smarter working processes and who don't stay tuned to the needs and behaviours of their customers, they will face competition from those who do. So in so many industries now, the barriers to entry are dropping, and competition could come from startups who are doing one of your services more efficiently, or from an established competitor who is using design thinking to rationalize their operations and respond to market demands better. So you're here at this webinar because you recognize that design thinking is a means of identifying and implementing innovation, and you want to ensure the continued success of your organization. Another recent trend is the smartphone generation. So there was a time when business software just needed to let people get their jobs done, and that was satisfactory. And it was okay to have software that was developed by developers and for developers that was ugly and difficult to use and made it easy for people to make mistakes. But this is not acceptable nowadays. The table stakes have completely changed. So now your employees and your customers are used to the delightful experiences that they have using technology on their phones. And this is how they understand technology should be. And they're absolutely right, because why shouldn't business software be as well defined and customized to their needs as their consumer apps that they're using every day? So how do you get that result? It's not by handing out a list of requirements to developers and hoping that they will create a product with an excellent user experience. The only way to get that result is by using a design thinking approach. And our final trend that we'll look at is the amount of time that is spent on project rework that's avoidable. So in today's world, speed is key. So you need to get software out and to get the job done quicker before your competitors do. And many of you probably have experienced projects where requirements were not properly identified and scoped to the start. In fact, I guarantee that anyone who's ever been involved in a large project has seen this. So that causes rework and change requests and delays, and you just don't have time for that. Taking a little time at the start to design a product saves you time down the line. It also helps make decisions about priority and makes the whole process easier. So now that now we're going to quickly just look at an example of how an old approach didn't work and why a company saw the need for a new approach. So I used to work for a very large energy supplier that supplied commercial energy, and they were facing severe competition from their competitors who were offering online tools that helped their customers see energy reports. And this energy supplier was getting complaints from the customers who were talking about leaving because their online reporting tools just weren't up to what competitors were offering. So they spent loads of money trying to solve this problem, and they were taking requests for requirements from account managers and from senior people within the business. But all of these people didn't quite understand what it was that the users, the customers needed. And so they spent lots of time implementing features that weren't really needed, and then halfway through development, them would realize, oh, this isn't what I wanted it to be, and then there would be change requests, and all the time was spent doing change requests and making changes, and just a staggering proportion of their innovative features failed because they just didn't actually even get through development gates, because they just weren't in justified use of the money they spent on them. So they decided to take a different approach, which was design thinking, to take a step back and ask themselves, what is it that our customers are trying to achieve? So they did research with their customers and observed them, got them to show them the reports they needed, and they realized that actually the tool they needed was quite simple and was like not as complex as they thought to create, and that they were able to create that tool quite easily by using a design thinking approach, by creating prototypes, by showing them to customers, and by reducing the number of change requests. So it just turned out to be a much more efficient way of getting a better product, and that's the kind of result that we can expect from design thinking. So now that we understand the context for design thinking and about why we need to innovate and why the old approaches didn't work, let's talk about why design thinking is good for your business. And firstly, lower costs. So design thinking can reduce your costs in many ways, but one that stands out is lower training costs. And I'm sure if I ask you if you needed training to use your email, or perhaps you have a Nest heating system in your house, or your online banking, do you need training to use any of these things? No, because they were well designed to be easy and intuitive to use, and there's no reason why your business application shouldn't be like that as well. So all that money that you spend training people, you don't need to if you design things properly to be easy for people to use. And if your business produces software for your customers to use, you can expect that you'll have lower call center costs, as people don't have to ring you to ask how to use your software, which is a really significant saving. I mean, in Ireland anyway, the average support cost is about €7, so about £6, which is a really significant cost. And you can expect lower training costs with design thinking approach. These figures, by the way, this decreased by 30 to 80%. That's from SAP themselves. So this is they measured the success of their own engagements with their own customers, and these are the numbers that they came up with, which are really valuable. So another benefit that we can expect is higher productivity. So when software is custom built for the job that you needed to do, it's obviously better at helping you do that job, which means that your employees can become more productive and get their jobs done quickly. For example, you might have common tasks easy to get to instead of the person going through several clicks, or you might have actionable notification. So a notification that comes on to say, that this report is active or this customer is waiting on this thing, which means that you don't have to spend time going back to check things, or you're not missing things. And ultimately, when you think about your employees, they want to do their jobs well, and having apps that are enjoyable to use will increase user adoption and lead to happy employees as well. Third benefit, and we're just going to go to 5 kind of top line benefits here, but a third benefit is fewer errors. So if the software is easy to use and it's easy to enter and it saves automatically without you having to remember to hit save, all of these things really contribute towards fewer errors. And if you consider how much time consuming it is to fix an error after the fact, and how you are basing your business decisions on data that could be bad data, then you'll really appreciate how worthwhile it is to prevent errors happening in the first place. You can expect errors to reduce by 30 to 80% as well. And then fewer change requests. So I talked about this a lot when I was describing the energy supplier case study earlier, about how costly change requests are. And so by designing the software up front and creating a prototype that you can share, and we'll talk about this a bit more later, you can expect change requests to dramatically reduce. There's a quote from Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous architect, that I quite like, where he said you can use an eraser on the drafting table or a sledgehammer on the building site. So this is completely true for software development as well. It's a lot easier to just rub out a line when it's on a paper prototype than it is to go in and sledgehammer your code later on down the line. And so I'm sure you all know this, and I'm sure you've experienced change requests blowing budgets. It's so frustrating for the team to spend so much time on something that could have been fixed, had a little bit more thinking than done at the start. And then I suppose the ultimate benefit of design thinking is greater satisfaction, not just for your team who are able to get more done, but also for your employees and for your ultimate users, who could be your customers. And people not being frustrated using stuff is, they're happy employees, they're happy customers. So, it's a wonderful benefit. So now that we understand the context of why we need to use design thinking and how it's beneficial in organizations, let's talk about how design thinking happens in real life. So how do we do design thinking? So at Zoosh, we focus on reframing problems. And what this means is that to understand what's causing the problem, we look at it through the lens of design thinking. We look at it through the lens of the people who use the product. We take a human-centered approach. So our approach has three parts, as Merv mentioned earlier, discover, design, and develop. And this is the same approach that SAP uses as well. So the first step is discover. And this is where we find out, what are the user needs and what are the business goals. In this phase, we might work with you to have a stakeholder workshop where we'd talk to subject matter experts and gain the knowledge of the business to understand what is it you're trying to achieve. And then we would talk to perhaps employees or customers who use the software, and we'd interview them. We might do some usability testing. We could do ethnographic research, which is where we observe something being used in real context, which is really useful if you have a mobile app that's used by employees going door to door or checking on site facilities. You need to understand what the context of use is. We can do stuff like call center shadowing, and basically there's loads of benefits to this. So it means that we can understand the unique needs of customers and business users. We can produce videos and photos of the research that we're doing, and this is really useful when you're having meetings to convince stakeholders to empathize with users. And as I'm sure loads of you have been in meetings where the decisions are being made by kind of who has the highest ranking position within the organization, which isn't always the best way to make decisions. So if you have user research data, this primary data, it's really powerful and helps you make decisions that are focused on the user. So it gives people just more data that they can use for decision making. So a key deliverable from this phase is personas and context scenarios. These personas are something that we make that's kind of representing an archetypal user. And the one that we see here is for Scott, and this is for some software we made called Profile 90 that helps coaches and scouts in the football industry find talent. And so by kind of capturing these qualities, we can see, what are the frustrations of this person? What are their goals? What are they trying to achieve? What are their priorities? And this helps us make decisions. So when we come to something, we're wondering, okay, should we put this information at the top of the page or this information? We can ask ourselves, what would our persona want, and what will make their job easier? It really focuses the team on the people involved. And then we go into the design phase. So in the design phase, we do something called wireframes, which are like blueprints of a website or product. And these might be for mobile or desktop or for Internet of Things products, whatever. We can do all of these. And we might host collaborative workshops where we show the product team the sketches that we've done, and we'll talk them through them and communicate effectively towards a shared result. And what's happening here is that at this stage, when we have sketches, when we have diagrams, before they're coded, everyone can contribute and make changes, and the sketches can be shared amongst stakeholders, so everyone can see what will be built before we go into development. A key deliverable from this is visual designs and prototypes. So we will apply visual design, which is the look and feel, to increase the Y factor of the screen, and put it into a prototype, which is just a clickable mock-up of what the product will be, and there are loads of tools for this that you can usually access it on your phone or an iPad or whatever. And this can be shared with stakeholders. It can be shown to users. We might do research to ask them, you know, will this be helpful to you? Is this going to help you in your work? And this is a fantastic way of everyone understanding what is going to be built, so that we can collect feedback and changes at this stage. So it's just, you know, it says here, a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. It really is. There's literally no point in everyone sitting in a room and discussing something abstract when we can just put it into people's hands and they can have something tangible to feedback on. So this is a few screens from an app called build.me, which is SAP's own prototyping kit. So this is some screens from a prototype for an Internet of Things application. And you know, you can just put these screens together in quite an easy way, and everyone can see what will be built before it's actually built. So then once we have the product fully designed and everyone's happy with it, then we move into the delivery phase. And in this phase, developers are coding up the product, as you understand, but also the designers are working with the developers to ensure that if there are changes, that those changes are aligned with all the priorities we've already set through our user research. So that's basically our process for design thinking at Zoosh. And so I'm going to pass you over now to Lena, who worked on a fantastic product that she's going to demonstrate to you now for SAP. So I'll hand over to you, Lena.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how design thinking can be applied to SAP and show a case study. Simplicity to complex business scenarios. Fiori is SAP's design language for design thinking within their ecosystem. It brings simplicity to complex business scenarios so people and teams can be more productive and work better, faster, and in entirely new ways. SAP Fiori provides a consistent and holistic user experience and effortless interaction patterns for SAP software. The design philosophy is based on 5 core principles. It is designed for users, their needs, and how they work, adapts to multiple use cases and devices, provides one fluid, intuitive experience, includes only what is necessary, and makes an emotional connection. With SAP Fiori, you can start from simple configurations and go to the lowest level of very deep customizations. Fiori can be used as a framework by utilizing ready-made out-of-box Fiori components. And here you can actually see some examples for typical workflows like management tasks. Or for more custom apps, SAP UI5 components can be used. And building highly customized applications is also possible with HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS. In this example, you can also see Fiori Launchpad, which is the entry point to SAP Fiori apps on mobile and desktop devices. The Launchpad displays a homepage with tiles. You can display live status indicators, such as the number of open tasks. Let's move on to our case study. KaizenTree is a startup company working in pharma manufacturing space. With KaizenTree or any new project, we start with research and asking questions. We need to form the big picture by finding out different pieces of the overall puzzle. Research can include ethnographic study, end-user interviews, or workshopping with the stakeholders. The benefit of doing this is that we get understanding of the problems in the domain, get insight of users and their goals, and then we can think about possible solutions. The research results also help architects and business owners to choose the most suitable technology for the project. Next, about the challenges or factors we discovered in pharma manufacturing. There are hidden factory activities which reduce the quality or efficiency of a manufacturing operation or business process, but are not initially known to managers or others seeking to improve the process. When a production supervisor or a lean engineer is tasked to determine how to ramp a production line, for example, 10%, they need to equip with tally counters, check sheets, and stopwatches to monotonously measure the current performance of the line. How many units get through each workstation every hour, how much scrap we have, downtime, and so on. This takes up a lot of their time. And in the picture here, you can see a typical production line in a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility. You can also see 2 examples of units that they can produce. Next, about the solution we and the promoters came up with. Kaizen tree solution helps to identify those hidden factory activities in order to eliminate sources of waste and error. Pharma manufacturers are able to continuously collect data and track down reasons and duration of downtime events. Production operators use data collectors, which are touchscreen devices, to capture every unit and every downtime event. All events are measured precisely without the need of the lead engineer to be standing over the process. This takes much less effort and time compared to the old manual method. This means that the lean engineer and supervisor can focus on what's important, improving the line rather than measuring performance. Data collected by the tablets are shown to managers, supervisors, and lean engineers in a meaningful way. Dashboards displaying diagrams with real-time metrics help to keep all stakeholders informed from anywhere via the web portal. Alerts keep support teams informed as where to focus support. And in the picture we can see operators processing units and recording events to their data collectors. During the course of our research, we discovered that operators using the tablets have very little technical know-how. They need to focus on processing units, not on using software. Buttons and text have to be large in size so that they can record events barely watching the UI. And because of this, we designed a highly bespoke UI that helps them to achieve their goals very easily. Therefore, we chose React technology. For the management UI, we chose SAP Fiori, UI5, and SAP Analytics Cloud. This is because they have ready-made usable and responsive components, consistent look and feel, quick implementation time. SAP products are commonly used in pharma manufacturing, which complements the infrastructure. And they also have a comprehensive cloud solution. And here's you can see another example of operators in their workstations, and tablets are placed right beside them. Next, about the benefits design thinking approach gave to the Kaizen tree, I'd like to invite Mervyn to this.
Thank you very much, Lena. It's really interesting stuff and really good to see the pictures from real life too. So yeah, I'd like to just point out on this particular slide that design thinking really allowed Kaizen tree to articulate its offering in a manner that addressed the key challenges that its particular customers are facing. So the design was so compelling in this instance that the manufacturing line operators who were involved in the design process fully embraced the solution and couldn't wait to get their hands on it, quite literally. For customers, meaning pharmaceutical manufacturing companies, ultimately agreed to pay for the product in advance of any product actually existing. In other words, the design was so compelling that they decided they would like to sign up immediately to ensure that it would be built and they could get it into their hands. So from anybody's perspective on the business side, that's a very, very powerful endorsement of the approach and indeed the outputs of this particular process. So just moving on to the comments from the particular promoter involved here and the head of the Kaizen tree company, a gentleman called Anthony Cahill. Essentially, he fully embraced the design thinking approach And perhaps his background as a lean manufacturing consultant really helped him to get over the hump of understanding design thinking and why it's relevant or important. So it's fair to say that now Anthony is a proponent of design thinking and likely wouldn't have approached the product design in any other way, and certainly wouldn't moving forward. So it's just, I suppose this is again a testament to the approach and the power of it. You really can get results from very, very early, in contrast to doing it in a more traditional way. Moving on to the benefits of design thinking. So really, design thinking can help with proving the business case. So really getting buy-in from customers before building a very comprehensive product. So that's very, very reassuring, and I'm sure would allow any of you to take the leap on investing in really developing and creating that code that Sheena mentioned, and without the need to apply the metaphorical sledgehammer to the code later. Additionally, the risks of building the software and behaviors in the incorrect way are greatly reduced, meaning that ultimately the software engineers who are developing will have far fewer questions, that they won't need to come back again and again and again for clarification, because the design will encompass all of the behaviors, the flows that they would need to be aware of when creating the software. For the end customers of Kaizen 3, again, you can see in the photograph here a few operators on the manufacturing lines with their tablets beside them. For Kaizen 3, I suppose the real beef was ultimately demonstrating to the end customers that this particular solution would bring them the benefits that were promised at the very beginning. And it's fair to say that one of the particular lines went from producing 7,500 units per shift to 12,500 units per shift. That's a very dramatic increase in productivity, and really created further buy-in from them that this is something that they were happy that they invested in and took on board and into use. So really, design thinking can bring tangible business benefits for you as product owners, and indeed for your customers on the other side, because you really can deliver upon the promise that you put forward. And I think that's pretty much all the content that we've had for today. So before we wrap up, we might just get to some questions, if there were any put forward. So Sheena, if you move to the next slide, we can also put up perhaps the contact details, because I'm sure that some people may want to get in touch afterwards with us. Are there any questions, Sheena, that you can see on the administrator panel?
Yeah,
Hello,
yeah,
Balash.
Yeah, this is
hi,
Balash. Yeah,
Hi,
yeah.
Balash.
Sheena, thanks for the great presentation. Maybe I would say, while maybe others trying to unmute or put questions in the chat window,
Yes.
perhaps maybe you could answer a question that may pop up in discussions that based on your experience, and Lena, Sheena, any of you can explain this. What would be the typical percentage of design in the overall budget compared to the entire budget? For example, I think people might be interested even for the case study that you just showed.
Yeah, I'm also happy to take that one, Sheena or Lena.
Yeah, go for it. I think you're more familiar with that project.
Thanks indeed. Yeah, being the business guy. Yeah. So Balash, it's a very good question, and I'd say that ultimately you may be talking around something like 15 to 20% of an overall budget that you'd spend up front on really immersing yourself into the research, extrapolating from it all of the insights, and producing your wireframes and high fidelity designs that can be employed by the developers. So I'd say it's approximately 15 to 20% of the overall budget, which may or may not sound like a lot depending on your perspective, but fundamentally over the long run it saves you an awful lot of money, because you can really get things right the first time, or improve your chances of doing so quite considerably. I hope that addresses your question, Balash.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Very good. Sheena, have any other questions come in that you can see in the meantime?
No questions at the moment. Hopefully that means the presentation answered all the questions that people have.
Well, indeed, one would hope so. Okay, in that case, I think we do indeed hope that you've all gotten something from today's session. We all love design thinking, and we'd be more than happy to help you all on your way moving forward. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you'd like further insights, or indeed to quickly spar on solutions or challenges that you're currently facing with design. Our contact details are on the screen just now. Please take a screenshot or jot them down as you will, and please don't hesitate to contact us. We'd be delighted to speak with you. So thank you very much, Sheena and Lena, for your input, and indeed Balash for a good question. And from my part, I bid you all a wonderful day and a happy upcoming holiday season.